The information in today's lecture is being drawn from the Field Guide to Covering Sports by Joe Gisandi. Baseball and softball, more than any other sport, seem to be about numbers that measure a player's success during a career, a season, a game, or even an at-bat. Numbers define a player's season. For example, a batter who hits 300 is likely an all-star. A pitcher with a 2.52 earned run average is probably headed for the Hall of Fame. Even specific plays can be reduced to numerical equations. A double play where the ball is hit to the shortstop, who then throws to second base, who then throws it to first, is recorded as a 6-4-3 double play. Similarly, a fly ball caught by the right fielder is an F9. How do you get used to these little intricacies? It's simple. Practice keeping score while watching games on TV or at local ball fields, and take copious notes in a notebook as well. That's how baseball writers manage to succeed even when games throw them a curve. When you're covering baseball and softball, the first thing you need to do is learn the basics. Playing positions are assigned numbers that correspond with their positions, which makes keeping score much easier and much more streamlined. The pitcher is a 1, the catcher is 2, the first baseman 3, the second baseman 4, the third baseman 5, the shortstop 6, the left fielder 7, the center fielder 8, and the right fielder 9. If you're covering slow pitch softball, the rover or the right center fielder is generally given the number 10. Next, you also need to familiarize yourself with abbreviations used for recording plays. For example, a strikeout can be recorded one of two ways. A regular notation of a K means a strikeout swinging, whereas a K written backwards is a strikeout looking. Sportspool.com has an exhaustive list of abbreviations and definitions, but for example, a home run is written as an HR, runs batted in are RBI, a wild pitch is a WP. Also remember that balls are cited first in pitch counts, meaning when you see a 1-2 count, it reflects that 1 ball and 2 strikes are on the batter. Also, you need to note a batter can reach base 8 ways, and let me give you a little tip. This is a question in Trivial Pursuit. Those 8 ways include by hit, walk, hit by pitch, fielder's choice, error, dropped third strike, catcher's interference, and fielder's obstruction. Next, you also need to familiarize yourself with the following terms: at-bats, balk, batting average, catcher's interference, earned run average, earned runs, fielder's choice, infield fly rule, on-base percentage, on-base plus slugging percentage, passed ball, sacrifice fly, slugging percentage, total bases, value over replacement player, wild pitch, save, and hold. And finally, bring a scorebook to all baseball games. Get the lineups from both teams along with potential substitutes and start keeping score. And it wouldn't hurt to bring a notebook to take lots of notes between innings to help you record the game by the end of the game. Now that you've learned the basics and gotten ready, it's time to learn how to watch baseball. The best thing I can tell you, be observant. Record the tiny details that bring a game to life, such as the number of times a ball bounces before it's caught, where a tag was applied, where a fielder stood when he threw the ball, if he or she hit the cutoff man. Also, look for the less obvious factors that helped a team win, such as a middle reliever who pitched 3 shutout innings to keep a game close, or a double play that held off a rally, or a batter who fought a pitcher for a 10-pitch walk before scoring. Also learn to spot less obvious plays, such as the plays that don't appear quite so clearly, such as a hard slide into the 4th inning when a runner broke up a double play that in turn allowed the inning to continue, and a run to score in a game determined by a single run, or a dropped foul ball that extended an at-bat and the batter then hits a home run. Write a few sentences at the end of each inning describing how each team scored, so you'll have this when you write the game later. This is a great way to remind yourself of what happened and how the game developed. Also determine how many runners each team leaves on base. You'll see the stat LOB in many box scores. The number can be perceived in one of two ways. On the one hand, a team may have lots of runners left on base, say 10 or 12. They probably hit the ball pretty well, but did not do a very good job advancing runners. By the same token, you see a small number of runners left on base. It may mean they got their batters around, or that they just didn't hit very well and get the batters on. You also can look at determining when and how often a team uses the sacrifice bunt, and how often a batter hits a ball to the right side of the field to advance a runner. These are major technique and strategy plays that really help a team advance and win ball games. Learn the game by speaking with veteran coaches and players, by reading reports on games by regular baseball beat writers, and by listening to baseball announcers. Personally, I would rather listen to a baseball game than watch one on television. You get more analysis and you get a clearer picture. Determine how many outs a pitcher records from fly balls compared with ground outs. Pitchers and managers prefer ground outs because ground balls very seldom turn into home runs. Look for many streaks in a game, such as a pitcher who retires 9 batters in a row, or a team that gets the lead runner on base 5 innings in a row. And record pitch counts. Batters hit far better and far worse during certain counts. Pitchers tend to dominate when the count is 0-1, 0-2, and 1-2 because they can throw throwaway pitches and try and get batters to chase. On the other hand, batters are more in control when the count is 3-0, 3-1, and 2-0 because the pitcher does not want to walk them, so they're going to have to throw a strike. And be a stats geek. Go through the box scores to analyze stats, looking for trends in hitting and pitching stats for individuals and teams. And finally, check to see how a pitcher has performed during the past several games or weeks. You can also check for other stats such as ERA and number of pitches per game. You can also check into how many runs this pitcher typically allows in the first few innings against the last few innings, or how a pitcher does after 80 or 90 pitches. This can give you an indication during the game you're covering at how much longer this pitcher is going to be able to make it in the game. After the game, you need to ask players to explain some of their key at-bats, ask pitchers about some of their pitches, and then ask the fielders about some of the defensive plays they made. These will give you an indication of what they were looking at. Maybe they observed something off of a particular batter, and so they were able to make a shift. Maybe a batter picked up a tendency that a pitcher had. So ask them about some of those key at-bats, pitches, and defensive plays that played an integral part in the game's outcome. Also, you want to talk to coaches and managers and have them explain their strategies or some of the key moments. Perhaps they pulled a hit and run that was a surprise, or maybe they ran a suicide squeeze and nobody would have expected that. Ask them what they were thinking and why they were willing to take the gamble in that situation. Perhaps they had a pitcher that looked like he might be gassed and they decided to stay with him and he was able to pull it out. Ask them why. Also ask those coaches and managers to explain some of the recent trends. Perhaps they've had a pitcher who's been going deep quite frequently in games, and this time he just wasn't able to do so, and find out why that could have been. Or talk about a batter who is really seeing the ball really well and what they think about that. Catchers are a great resource whenever you're talking about pitchers because, well, they're on the receiving end of it and they have the front row seat to what that pitcher is doing. So take a look at that and ask them why they think a particular pitcher was throwing particularly well on a given day. And then focus on the game. You're there covering this game, so take note of that. Make sure you're focusing on that game. Make a couple of notes about features that are potentials, but make sure your focus remains where it is, and that's at the diamond on that day. Now as you begin to write, and this should stand for any sports story you write, do not follow a template. If you're covering Major League Baseball, you're going to be covering 162 games in a season. Nobody wants to read the same tried and true over and over again, same lead, same body, same conclusion of your story. Break it up. Come up with something unique for each story that gives it a different angle. Also look for a story beyond the stats or the scoring plays. It may be that a particular player was able to get out of a funk because he talked to his old high school batting coach. Find those types of things to go along with your story. And as always, address the game's significance, where this puts the winning team in the standings, what it does to the losing team. In a preview, find an angle beyond the two teams playing. Perhaps you've got a couple of players who were high school teammates, or maybe you have a manager who managed the other team. Find out some of that information to add some body to your story. Again, you're going to be covering a lot of baseball games and a lot of softball games. When it comes to the style, make sure you use RBI on first reference. RBI stands for runs batted in. So when I see RBIs, it drives me crazy because it's not runs batted ins. You're going to write earned run average on first reference, and then after that, use ERA. There's certain number rules that you need to follow with baseball, so make sure you go to the baseball section of your AP style book to figure those things out. For example, batters go 2 for 3 using numbers, not 2 for 3 spelled out. And then again, as with any sport, avoid the cliches. And one final note, some specifics to softball. You need to keep in mind that there are some intricacies that make softball different from baseball. This is not just a sport played with a larger ball on a smaller field, usually by women. Men play softball too. It is a smaller field. The mound is not actually a mound, but a circle that's 43 feet from the plate. You're going to have a lot of differences in pitching styles. For example, they don't throw a sinker in softball, they throw a rise ball. Ball tends to be more of the small ball style of play where you might get a lead runner on, you sacrifice them to second, they may steal third, and that sort of thing. So there are a lot of lower scoring games. But softball is a beautiful sport, has a little bit of difference from baseball, and you need to learn what these intricacies are if you're going to go cover it. So now that you know all this, you're ready to go out, hit the diamond, and cover some ball games.